Welcome back, Cabbage Crew. This is John and Matt, your favorite Avatar fans, talking about the live action Avatar the Last Airbender. And here we are. We made it. This is the finale. And this is our 2 cents on the topic and the episode. So, Matt, what did you think? It was good. Okay, the end.
Yeah, I mean, like always, we can go scene by scene. I think, but overall, the episode
Yeah.
was. I feel like this is the first time I sat down and watched an episode, and again, maybe a lot of it's like a internal therapy, but like I didn't really mind any of the changes, even though some of them weren't great. But I was like, okay, like I kind of went with it, and the story of the episode was okay for me. The action was okay for me. Like the episode was, we'll go through it, but the episode, I didn't hate the episode at all. It was probably the strongest as a. It's weird because it is the finale, so it should be the strongest as an individual story. But like from the beginning to end, I probably like didn't hate anything in this episode, which is probably the first time I've said that. Like it's almost like the writing was kind of better too. Like it was a better episode. So I mean, we can go through it all.
Sure.
So an episode starts off with the fight sequence, a pretty decent fight sequence with the crew jumping in onto a ship and taking essentially down one ship together as a team, with Aang first going in and doing some good moves and taking out a couple firebenders and getting assisted by Katara. And then Sokka kind of came in and took out the I guess the ship itself, went up and took it down from the inside, kind of thing. So, I mean, what do you think about that sequence? What do you think about the action overall? And this, not just that sequence, but this episode.
I thought that scene was relatively good. The only I would say that the weakest part was the water bending in that scene. It looked like just big splashes. It didn't. It was not. It was underwhelming. But overall it was fine. And so I did like that. And I thought the overall fight scenes were. I mean, I'm just gonna keep using the word fine.
Take away the Godzilla part. I'm talking just the hand combat slash.
You mean Waterzilla?
Yeah, take away that part. I'm talking just the action sequences. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to repeat myself with this. It was fine. It wasn't great. Wasn't bad. They were fine.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I mean the water bending is definitely the most CGI of it all.
Yeah.
The firebender. I mean, we talked about it. The firebending looks really good.
It is good. Yeah. It does.
Air is decent at times, depending on what he's doing with the air and how he's manipulating the air. Earth, it seems like it's spotty. Earth, I mean, this is probably the season we're going to see Earth the least amount. So we only saw it in small spots, and it looks kind of spotty, but it depends on what they're doing with the Earth, much like air. And then water looks not good.
No.
I still think when she does stuff with ice, it looks okay.
I agree.
But with the water, I think it has something to do with the, just how it's moving, and I don't know, it just looks very CGI. It just looks like it's not great. It doesn't look good.
I don't mind the CGI. For me, it's about like the level of bending, where like I said, like the first scene, it just seemed like she knocked off firebenders with just a big splash. Like it just seemed like she was in the pool and she just went like that's all it seemed like it was. It just seemed weak to me.
Gotcha. I mean, I guess they don't want to display her as a powerful bender because right now she's still learning. You know, we'll get to kind of all that in a little bit, but like you know, she's kind of mid tier at this point.
Sure.
If that, you know what I mean? Like she's still learning.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the progression of how she learned everything. But yeah, so I mean, again, it was a good sequence. I thought it was pretty good. Um, I mean, I will say it was the first time that I can remember I saw all three of those characters fighting together and doing one
Hmm.
common goal together.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen that much. They've been separate. Every episode they kind of separate.
Hmm.
Either if it's Aang going to save them, or Sokka having a side story and them two are off doing something, or I'll stay behind and fight Zuko while you go to the temple, or whatever it might have to be. It seems like them three are never really together fighting as a group. Um, and I mean, I might be wrong. Maybe there was a time, but this is the first time that I could remember all three characters fighting together
Right.
to take down one enemy or a group of enemies. You know,
Hmm.
which is odd. Um, but yeah, so after that sequence, again, pretty good sequence. We had a brief moment with Iroh and Zuko, which is played out very similar as the show did it, with him going into a smaller boat and Iroh kind of showing that unconditional love and showing the parallel, I guess not the parallels, but the showing that he kind of looks at Zuko as his own son. Um, I noticed in that episode that Zuko seems a lot more respectful and thankful of Iroh than he did in the original show. Um, I mean, they're just trying to make Zuko a little bit more relatable slash likable in this season, or in this show. Because in
Yeah.
the first season, you're always kind of like, man, he had like, you could tell he's something good, but he's just
Right.
not. You could tell he's just damaged, and he is very like spoiled prince, kind of an asshole, not very respectful, not really thankful for what Ira does,
Right.
talking back to him, yelling at him. He doesn't really do that too much in the show and in that scene as well.
And I know what they were. I know what they were trying to do. I just disagreed with it because, like, it's like Zuko's sole mission was just finding the Avatar. They're like in the original scene. It wasn't until Iroh said, like, ever since I lost my son, that's when Zuko became more human. Like, he took a step back and was there for Uncle for like a second.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you don't have to say it, Uncle. And he's like, I'll be back after I catch the Avatar. Like, it's like that's where that's where his mindset is in this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think they do a good job with that at all here. I really don't. It's just it's obviously a different approach, but that's not what made like, it's part of the reason why it made me like the character Zuko like so much. I mean, just the transformation, and I think I just think they're meddling into things that shouldn't be meddled in.
It's like small details that they're changing that makes it's like great characters. It's not necessarily about the big things. It's about the small things with great characters.
Right.
You know, it's like the small little details that make that character even better than what it could be, or that it
Right.
would be. And like Zuko, like they're making Zuko a watered down version of what Zuko really is.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't think it has anything to do with the time restraint, because these are just small creative decisions that they're making. Like that
Right.
conversation, it could have went very similar of the original conversation, and it was still a good conversation for what they're trying to do, but it didn't have to be that way. And I just, like I said, there's going into the show, I always thought they were going to make changes. I was expecting it. I'm like, there's no way they can do these 20 episodes in 8 episodes, but the changes they're making are not needed. Like they're just changing characters just for the sense of changing them, and it's giving us a watered down version of all the characters.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. But yeah, that scene, I liked it. I thought it was okay. Was it as powerful? No, but the whole show's done that, so I just kind of expect. It's a watered down. Like, was it good for a watered down scene between those two characters? Sure. Like again, like I'm walking out of every scene being like, okay, was there horrible acting? No. Was there horrible writing? No. It's a win. Like as long like like it was an
But
okay
are
scene.
you feeling it? Like that's the thing. Like
Mm-mm. No, not really. No, I didn't really feel. I mean, like a little bit, because I'm trying to take a step back and be like, I'm trying to
sure,
watch this as if I've never seen Avatar the Last Airbender.
that's
So
hard.
it's tough. It's hard. So it is one of those things where I do compare, but at the same time, I am like I didn't feel anything, and I don't think it was because I expected to be like I'm waiting for the watered down version of what it was, and if it reaches that expectation, that's where my expectation is. So if it's under that, I'm like meh. If it's over that, so like this scene was kind of better than what I would think this scene would be from what we have seen so far.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean there was no jokes about jumping on one leg or something like that. So I felt like that was a win. And it felt like that scene took itself serious in
Mhm.
the moment. Um, so yeah, we go a bit. I mean, for the most part, the war pretty much starts immediately.
Mhm.
A couple things that I've noticed that I noticed somewhere in this episode. I'm like, has Sokka used his boomerang at all?
I think like once.
One time, I don't remember when he did use his
I don't
boomerang.
remember either.
I was thinking about it in this episode for some random reason. I was like, this would be a great time for him to pull out like his boomerang and make like a statement of like, oh yeah, that's his boomerang.
It's boomerang.
Mm-hmm. Um. So yeah, I mean, one thing they very much changed was the ice moon, and
I laughed so hard.
and again another thing they could have just said it was the winter solstice. Like they skipped that in
They.
the show,
Oh yeah.
so they could have just said it was like they
Well, that
could
would
have
have been
made
confusing. That would have been confusing
why.
because like the association with what the winter solstice is.
Well, but even in the show, in the anime, the winter solstice and the summer solstice are when the spirit world and a physical world are closest.
Right. I'm just
So you
saying.
could
Just
make that argument that it's like this. If you want to make the argument that the spirits come out and they form physical forms one time a year, it would be during the winter solstice because
no. I
that's
get
one
that.
time a
Yeah.
year,
No, I
not
get
this
it.
ice moon that they made up. So again, just another change that they made.
Like, why not just say the full moon?
Well, I think the reasoning behind that was, I guess they didn't like the idea that the original anime had the spirits as their physical forms all the time.
Right.
So they were like, okay, for some reason they made the creative decision to make it only one time a year. So it could have been just the full moon. I guess they didn't want to make it the winter solstice, so they just had to have a I wouldn't say a MacGuffin, but they had to have something to make it trigger. So they made up this ice moon, and it's like, again, just like something that they added that didn't need to be added, just for the sake of adding it, and it just makes it a little bit weirder. Um, Also, something else I mentioned, there was no like scene where he was in the library. It was just like, which was a cool tease before
For Zhao.
for Zhao.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he was just like, he did mention the lion turtle, which was cool. Um, but I mean, it makes me think they're not going to go to the library, to be honest, because they've already introduced the owl.
Right.
We'll talk about it later, but they've already kind of shown a way they could show the kids or the crew, that there's a the day of Black Sun is coming. So it's like, it's interesting thing I just picked up. So yeah, I mean, anything that you want to talk about with those quick changes before we kind of move on to the battle itself? Any other quick changes you've thought of?
I forget. There was the one scene where like Aang was picking up something and like levitating with his airbending, and I was like, I think it was like some kind of It's like obviously it's a material item. I don't remember what it was though.
Mm-hmm.
But like he was like levitating it
I don't remember.
towards them. And I was like, what is this, Harry Potter? Where like you're doing Wingardium Leviosa?
Oh, really? I don't remember.
It was like
Another thing they did add is the knife, Korik's knife, which was interesting. Like Korik used it to go to the spirit world,
right.
and it could harm spirits physically. He could harm spirits, and then somehow Zhao got it. I kind of forgot how he got it, I think they even talked about it. And that was a nice. I mean, that's an interesting way of looking at that.
And I actually did like Kurik's presence and how he became a little bit more prominent in the North at the North Pole because he was the last waterbender avatar. And so obviously he's going to have some kind of wisdom. And so I thought that did make sense. Whether or not to put up a shrine like with Kyoshi or Kurg or all the previous avatars, like that's different. That's a different argument. But having Kurg appear here, I thought was it was a good addition, and I didn't mind it at all. Actually,
it added to what they were trying to do. I go back to that Kyoshi vision thing in my mind. It's so useless. It would have made more sense if she was just like knowing that he has the knife. Like maybe she can. I mean, obviously these avatars can communicate in a way. So like maybe she was like, "There's a weapon that can kill spirits. Someone's trying to kill the moon spirit. Get to the water,
right?
Get to the water tribe. You know, and that could have been a quick little vision. And it's like, okay." Then you could have filled in a lot of like talking ahead of time,
right?
But whatever. Now the one thing they did that was interesting about the Oasis, they showed how it healed, which was interesting. How they healed Momo. I really thought they killed off Momo. I was like,
yes, I thought that I actually liked in the sense of something new. I was like, the way to pull at the heartstrings is to kill an animal.
Oh yeah,
or like harm an animal.
The problem is I wrote this down because I didn't really feel it when he like hugged Momo when he was alive, and I was thinking, and I was like, how many times have we really seen Momo in this series?
Not much.
Not much. Like there wasn't any like early on in Avatar. They used them a lot for like fun fun things, like either if it was him earthbending or even if it's just something as simple as like a firebender's about to get him and then he jumps on him and runs all over his head and they get away, like they've done that. Or him wearing the hat of one of the mages, just like fun little things that they would throw in there so you could be like, oh, Momo, goofy Momo. They haven't really done that. So I'm like when Momo died, I was like, it was kind of a waste. And then when he came back to life, I was like, I didn't feel it. Like, sorry. Like
I did feel it because it's like, because it was a change, it was a sudden change, and it was like, that's Momo. And as obviously like, obviously you're correct in the sense that they didn't use Momo as much in the series. If you're watching it as a fan, you're like, that's Momo.
Yeah.
And so like you're hit a little bit. So I actually did like that change, that additional change there too. Pulled at the heartstrings a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I will say that it's nice to see you, showing some emotion. So negative all the time with the show. It's nice.
Just wait till I rate this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not done yet. So another change they do. I guess we're just spitting out changes, but they happened. Not that I hated any of them, but they were happening like very fast in this episode. I think it's because this episode is much like how last episode was just the waterbending master. This episode very much is just two episodes combined, Siege of the North. But they did add the war balloon in this, which made sense of how Zhao could get there without being noticed. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind that change at all. Especially because the war balloon happened earlier in the season, it would make sense. It would have been nice to tease it tease the fact that they got it at the end of an episode, but
right.
Because it kind of did come out of nowhere, but I didn't mind that cheese.
That cheese, of course, it was cheese.
I was gonna say that I didn't mind that tease. With the war balloon, but I didn't mind that change. So I mean, before we move on here, because we're about to move on to the actual fight scene, like the actual war, are there any other things that before everything starts you had a problem with, you liked, you felt like didn't need to be there, you felt like was a good change?
So this was before the fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I did not like the sense that like Katara is a waterbending master already.
That was the first thing I was gonna wrote down, because in the show, Zuko says, something along the lines of, "You peasant, you found a master, didn't you?" Something like that. And you get the sense that she's been there trading for probably a couple weeks, right?
You mean in the show?
In the show.
Like, I mean, in the original.
In the anime.
No, it wasn't a few weeks. It was like a few days.
I mean, whatever, but you have the sense between when Paku finally said, "You know what, we're ready to train you," to when they actually attack. You get the sense it's been some time, either a couple days.
It was a couple days.
A couple days. So she was able to learn some stuff. Not to mention that she's had maybe a 2-month journey with Aang.
Right.
Here it seems like, again, she's been with Aang for maybe 10 days, and she's been there for a day, and right after fighting Paku is when the stuff started falling. So
right,
it's just odd. It's just like that moved fast. So yeah, I mean, sorry to kind of take that from you, but go. I mean,
I mean, I just didn't appreciate, because like, how is she a master? Like, she hasn't gotten any training. Like, besides the waterbending scrolls, they can't, like, they're like good practice, but they're not. It's not just like in the original show. Like, here's our waterbending scrolls, but they're no substitute for a real master. So like it just doesn't make sense. Like, why is she considered a master when she hasn't had training?
Right. And I can see, like, when that kid says to her, like, "Thank you, Master Katara," that I was okay with that, because it's like that could show leadership and give her confidence. And obviously she's not a master, but like in his eyes, she might be a little bit better than a normal waterbender, but for someone that barely knows waterbending, they might look at her as great.
True.
I would have liked just Aang to learn waterbending with her, and maybe shown them practicing, even if it's at the beginning of an episode where it's like they're just practicing, and you can just kind of have the sense they've been practicing together for a couple of days.
Yep.
So Aang didn't know waterbending. It seemed like 2 episodes ago could barely do waterbending, and now she's like this master.
Even though she's not, but it's okay.
Not, yeah. So yeah, it's just, and again, it's just watering down some of these character developments and where these characters are in the sense of where they are in the show, where they're going to get to. It's like, it almost seems like right now she is as good as she should be towards like the second, like right around when Appa gets taken. Halfway through the second season, I get the sense, at least,
Right.
And it's like, it is what it is. But that's just I'm not trying to compare, but that's just kind of how I'm looking at it.
Right.
Now it's Zhao. I had a problem with him really this entire episode.
His whole character's been awful.
His character's been awful. I haven't really liked the actor. The actor's been very like Zhao's supposed to have a temper, and I just feel like he's like too calm.
Yeah.
Again, not the actor's fault. I say the actor. It's more the director's fault, more the direction, the writing.
Sure.
That's something that the actor doesn't or shouldn't be doing on his own. That's something that he should be told how to play that part.
Right.
Or at least pick up the damn DVD and watch 1,001 season. You can't watch 8 episodes. Yeah, so he wants to be the new Fire Lord, it seems. Like he talks about being the fire, not only killing the spirit, but he talks about being the Fire Lord.
Yeah, he's power hungry, which from the original show, I mean, That's all he ever was. He was power hungry. I mean, I never really took what he said right there to heart. I really didn't. But
I didn't. Once he said that, I was like, did he say he wanted to be the Fire Lord? I was like, I never got the sense of that in the show.
Fire Lord Zhao.
Fire Lord Zhao. I never got the sense of that in the show. So yeah. So Aang. Next scene, Aang right before the halfway through the war is just complaining a lot right before he's about to turn into.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that.
It just seems like every time we see Aang, he's complaining about letting the world down, letting himself down. Aang does it a couple times in the series when it's needed, but also he's like fun, goofy, childish, especially in season 1. It's like he's goofing off. This Aang doesn't do that at all, so he just seems like he's like a pouty boy, little grumpy boy.
He reminds me of Marcel the Shell.
I don't know who that is.
You know Marcel the Shell?
He reminds me of Zuko. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I don't know who Marcel is. You explain that though.
It's that movie about that shell that can talk, and he's like, yeah, and I went on a Dorito and I flew away and I cracked a bell. Like he talks like it's a little whiny shell movie. It's a pretty big movie. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never heard of it. No, he just it just stinks because now we're the whole season in, we're done, and I can't think of. I can think more times off the top of my head of Aang either complaining or just not even complaining, just feeling sorry for himself about not being there.
Right.
And I can probably think of 8 different times, 12 different times in 8 episodes he did that, and I can probably think of 2 times where he was just having fun.
Right. Like in the original, right? Like it's like he had a bad day, and then he started just venting about it. Where, like, especially in the storm, that's an obvious one.
Even the finale.
Yeah.
There's like 3 times.
But like it was only like when it was needed.
When it was needed. This is like his personality.
Yeah.
Personality trait. Feels bad for himself.
I don't want this responsibility.
Yeah. Who said that? Actually, like, I don't want it. Yeah.
I'm a better actor than that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it certain times when that plot needs it, but when he just randomly talks about it, and then mentions Gyatso again, I'm like, man, there's a lot going on with that.
Right.
So it's just and again, like Aang's not like definitely like not my favorite character in Avatar the Last Airbender. He's a good character, but he's not like nowhere near like a top character of mine.
No.
But when I always thought of Aang, I always thought of like a character like they foiled Zuko, right? He's a character that knows he has a lot of responsibility and does take it on, but kind of sort of avoids it and uses like joy and like goofing off sometimes and as like a way of like hiding the trauma.
Yeah.
And we're like, Zuko's the opposite, right? Zuko's like all about his destiny and like chasing it and getting to where he needs to be and not even taking a day off.
Right.
So it's like Aang is not that at all in the show, and they just completely strip. I mean, not even a watered down version of Aang. Like they just take away the good part of Aang.
Yeah.
So, speaking of taking the good part of Aang away, so he so he becomes this Godzilla creature.
It's Waterzilla. It's Waterzilla
in the show. By the way, they mentioned multiple times that like he's now just dead or something.
I know.
He's just like a part of the spirit now. It's like, again, why did you need to add this? Like that was not
like Sokka was saying something. It was just like, oh, Sokka Aang's not going to be back anymore. He's gone.
Yeah, it's like there was no reason to add that at all.
No.
At all. And it's like I get it. It doesn't like it doesn't not make sense, but it's like it's just another thing they're adding just to add something.
Yeah.
because they want to be different, and then all that's doing is making us as an audience like think to ourselves more of like, well, why is that?
Right.
Like why merging with a spirit make you die?
Right.
I mean, it literally did the opposite to UA, so I don't know why. you know, yeah. So besides the actual Godzilla fire, how do you think it looked? How did you think it played out with Aang and the water beddings or and the water spirit kind of or the moon spirit merging? How did you like that all play out?
The whole visual effects on this episode I really liked. It was good. Whether that be Zhao invading, whether that be the moon spirit with Aang inside, and then obviously how powerful the moon spirit became,
Mm-hmm.
um, and illustrating that it all went well, and then the actual bombardment of the North Pole was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing just like how
How the siege, yeah.
oh yeah, just like the fire,
Yeah.
like the one huge fireball, like destroying like the Northern Water Tribe temple council building, whatever it was.
Aang's vision.
Um, yeah, and it's actually it's pretty powerful. You said it's very visually appealing. Um, so that was my
Yeah.
take.
Yeah, and I mean they also like did a good job at which they do a little bit in the show, but like the everyday soldier fight while Aang was fighting or doing all of that. It's like you see the everyday soldier fight. You're seeing actual people getting killed. You know, like you saw Princess Yue's what should have been her husband. I forgot his name. Um, he
Han,
died.
like
Han.
Han Solo. It's
Yeah,
Han.
Han. He died, and then
Yeah.
the kid that looks at Katara and says, you know, Master Katara, he's dead. So you see characters that you semi recognize die.
Mm-hmm.
You see the fight them fighting when the moon's not there, which was a pretty good sequence.
I
Um,
agree.
so that was all of that they added was good, was nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like okay, for once this show was like we're gonna kind of make this a little bit more like for 20 like older people,
Yeah.
not like for 8-year olds, you know, like
Right.
it looked legit. It looked like it was something that could have been out of a Game of Thrones type of situation. Um, which I went into this show thinking that they were going to be like combining Stranger Things and Game of Thrones. Like the Aang journey was going to be more of the Stranger Things, a bunch of kids, but in a bigger world scenario. And then Game of Thrones could be like the Fire Lord and Zuko's story, and it's like no, not really. That's what I thought they were gonna do, but no, not really. Um, so I know you're a big fan of Yue. I'm not.
Mm.
Um, her, you know, basically sacrificing herself to um, to save the Moon Spirit, and then becoming the Moon Spirit, which I don't think they actually showed her become the Moon Spirit.
No, they did not.
Um, but I think it all played out pretty well. Um, I actually, it's so weird because I'm not a big UA person, but like I didn't mind UA in this show. Like all the interactions with UA was good,
Yeah.
and maybe that's just because she did well, and she didn't really look the part. Again, I said that the other day. I think it's because the wig. The wig is just too much for me. Um, but her and Sokka, their interactions worked for me, and that whole sequence worked for me.
I agree. It wasn't. It wasn't as emotional, but it did the job. And I mean that's all there really was to say. I mean the difference was like she like did she water bend his feet to the ground?
Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah, so she is a waterbender. Remember we like talked about that
Yeah.
last episode? Yeah, so she was a waterbender. So she waterbended it so he couldn't move, so she was able to like do it without him interfering.
Right.
In the original show, he kind of just lets her do it. I believe
Yeah. Yeah.
he like at first he's like no, and then she like talks him into it, and he's like I respect what you have to say. I
Right.
respect your decision. Where like this, it was like he was almost trying to stop her.
Right.
Um,
Well, who knows what he would have done? I don't think. I don't think that was quite clear. She
mhm.
just did it to just in case kind of thing.
Yeah, it would have been interesting if he broke out of it and then stopped himself still from saving her.
Yeah.
Um, so another quick change they do um, is Zhao is tells Zuko something along the lines of, you were always supposed to fail. You were just supposed to motivate Azula to get
Hmm.
out, to essentially be the one to take over and to get her to, go into the grounds and fight. Um, Whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I watched that scene. I was like, I mean, literally the first time I saw Azula, she was bitching that she couldn't go out and fight. So I don't know why she needed extra motivation or why. I don't know. I don't really understand. I guess that
Hmm.
the whole Azula teaming up with Zhao faking teaming up with Zuko, but Zhao also wants to be the Fire Lord, and now Azula's. It's a little too like it's like you didn't need it to make it that complicated. Like everyone
No.
has their own motives.
Right.
Everyone has their own motives. Even if you take away the idea of what the anime did, it's like Zhao's power hungry. Azula wants to show her father that she's better than Zuko. Zuko wants to return home, dare I say, with honor, and 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 he wants to return home and has kind of the same motivation as Azula at this point. Um, but I think Ozai at this point is like kind of getting I wouldn't say like, proud of his son, but like he's surprised that his son's kind of doing certain things good. Um, again, he's like talking up his
Yeah.
son, and again he's doing that to I think encourage Azula more. It seems like, but Azula was already like
Yeah.
in that mode.
Hmm.
So
Right. No, I actually didn't mind it. It was one of those things where like, okay, I see where they're going with that, and like it wasn't something I disagreed with. It was actually like, okay, like I accept it. Um,
mhm.
and not that I neither disagreed or agreed. It
Did
was
you
just like,
accept Iroh murdering Zhao?
no, I was so. It was like, hi yeah. It was bad.
Yeah, Zhao doesn't seem like he's a killer either. Not Zhao, I'm sorry. Iroh doesn't seem like he's a killer.
No.
So that was like odd to me. Again, it would have just made more sense if the spirit killed him, or even if he just felt like they were fighting
Yeah.
and he accidentally fell in, and then the
Hmm.
spirit kind of took him, and then you never hear him again, or just it was just kind of weird that
Yeah.
happened. It kind of reminded me of episode 3 of the anime where Zuko goes to hit him and doesn't do it, and then walks away, and then Zhao's about to attack him, and Iroh steps in.
Yep. I
That was
agree.
like all back.
Hmm.
Um,
But this time, Iroh did not hold back.
yeah, Iroh just straight up murdered him. Because Iroh's supposed to be this like
Well,
different person now.
right.
Like his son died. He's not like that. And
Well, here's one thing. Here's I'm being devil's advocate here. They both said in the episode about like whatever you do to that spirit, I'll unleash on you tenfold.
mhm,
In the anime, he didn't get to do that to Zhao,
mhm.
but here he's like, I see Zhao right now, and I'm gonna unleash on him tenfold.
Yeah,
And so, what? I'm just giving it that perspective.
that's true. Yeah, I mean I say this is a different Iroh. So
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
not my Iroh, but like this
not.
Iroh, sure, and um, I will say it looked fine with him fighting, and that all worked.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
Another thing they bring up is that Zula, for some reason or another, and maybe he was lying about this. I don't know, but Zula knew that Zuko was the Blue Spirit.
But yeah, here's the thing. I hate that's the other half of that speech that I didn't like. So I accepted the like, Azula, like she's training, she like where Zuko is out and about, and making Azula like jealous and wanting to be better. And so that's the part I just accepted. I did not accept this part. I did not, because it was just like things that that were added that didn't need to be added and changed. And maybe it makes sense because like they grew up together, so like maybe he played with swords, and I mean maybe that's a thing, but that's implication, and I don't like to imply. So
no, yeah, it just would have made more sense, even if he didn't. That scene was never there where, the original anime, he walks in, he talks to him about taking his crew, and then he, sees the swords. That's an awesome scene.
I know.
Even if they didn't have that, he could have still been like, "You're the Blue Spirit." When he said you're a traitor, I was ready for him to say you're the Blue Spirit. He never did. And it's like, okay, interesting. And you could have just maybe been like, "Oh, okay, Zhao's smart enough to put the two together." Okay, fair enough. But again, they do these subtle changes that I just it makes me question if the director really knows his stuff, because they do these subtle changes that like us fans are like, okay, that's a change in your story, but why did you change it, and how now does that make sense? How did you make it sense? And it's like, okay, so now does Azula know he's the Blue Spirit, and did she tell the Fire Lord, or did she keep that to herself? It's a very like, again, it mixes things up, and makes new stuff in season 2 that will connect things, and who knows, but it's just a very odd way of doing it, when you didn't have to do it.
Speaking to the choir.
All right, so let's wrap this up.
Well, let me add. I was going to ask, like, what about Katara with the whole like, and come back, like we actually need you.
Oh yes, and the music too. Yeah, the music was good. It didn't serve a purpose, because they already said if the waterbender that didn't matter, right? Because they already said if the moon spirit lives, then he'll stop.
Right.
And Yue sacrificed herself. So like, her yelling to Aang didn't actually do anything. Maybe she thought it did something, but like her yelling, you know what I mean? It's like her yelling to Aang didn't make him stop. It was Yue saving the spirit that made him stop.
Right.
So like, she kind of says the stuff that she says in the Southern Air Temple in the original anime, or family and all that stuff.
That's the sense I got too.
Left in the show, and I was like, I'm not feeling anything. Whatever, like, like
Han died. Who cares?
This is supposed to be like the big part of the show's finale, and I was like, the music was good. Like, it was the first time we heard the legit music. But I mean, that's it. It didn't really do anything to me. What about you? I wasn't.
I guess we're going right to the ratings now, aren't we?
No, I have a couple other things. I mean, the father talking to Sokka was nice. The Poppy talking to Katara was nice. Like, those were nice scenes. Kind of,
yes, they were,
to close it all out.
Yep.
Again, Aang whining again.
I was so
literally whining. I'm like, can I get a scene with this kid?
He's just like, wah! And then just flies away.
Yeah. He again, he's just like talking about how Monkey Otso told me that. Blah, blah, blah. Like, if Monkey Otso told you that and you remembered that before, why are you just saying it now? It's like Monkey Otso tells you all these. I think there was about 5 times in this show where he was like, Monkey Otso told me once I have to do this. And it's like, well, my guy, like, every lesson you learn, Gyatso tells you something, and it's just one of those things where it's like the writing is just so bad.
Yeah.
That they go back to the same well of like, this person once told me, like, that they've gone to that well like 9 times. Like, either it's Gyatso,
right,
or if it's Gran. It's like whenever a character has to say something that's kind of like showing that they've grown, they have to
Right.
refer back to a character telling them something a long time ago, and
Right.
now they're using that and applying it to the situation, which is cool to do once, maybe twice.
Hmm.
But when you're doing it for every lesson of every episode, it's like it just reminds me, I hate to say this, of a children's show like Arthur or something, where it's like lesson of the day, and every episode doesn't really matter because you're not watching it in sequence, so you're just watching it as an episode by
Right.
itself, its own. So maybe you can have half the time it's like, well, Grandpa used to tell me,
Right.
because it's fine because who cares? You can watch every episode and sit down and watch it on its own. But when you're watching all 8 episodes back to back to back once a day, it's like how many lessons has Gyatso told you that you forgot until it happens again, and then you remember that lesson again? It didn't.
Like Aang mentions the monks and like Gyatso like a little bit in the anime, but it's so spaced out. Like that's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't come up every episode. It doesn't come up every 5 minutes. It's like it was spaced out because it served a purpose.
And because it served a purpose, it served more of an emotional purpose. So when Aang does bring them up and
Right.
and something's happening, like either if it's the storm episode or if it is the finale or if it is him saying, I failed the world once, I won't let it happen again,
Right.
or whatever it might be. It's subtle, it's spread out, it's emotional, you feel it. Here, it's like they overdo it to the point where it's like, here we go again,
Right.
talking about Monkeyatsu again. So
Avatar Gyatso.
so yeah, so the show's over. And
Well, how do you
there's
how do you like
after
the little
credits.
twist? How do you like the
Oh
twist
yes,
with using that the Northern Water Tribe invasion as a distraction to take Omashu?
I was okay with that.
I agree.
I
That
was
was
okay
good.
because again, this is one of the things where don't change something that happens, but add something that would make sense to that scenario.
Yep.
So like we know that season 2 Omashu will be taken over
Yep.
only maybe a month after the siege, so it would make sense that it would happen during the siege. I'm okay with that. Like the show has done that a couple times where they'll add something. I'm over here trying to think of an example now, but they'll add something to bring more context to what they're trying, like like they're adding a layer, and it's like, okay, I'm okay with you adding a layer to it.
Right.
I'm not okay with you changing it for no reason and then making it not make sense. This makes sense to the story.
Right.
It's like this makes sense completely of how the story should be going, and now you're just adding something to it. Perfect. Awesome. I'm even okay with Azula being there because guess when she's going to be Aang in Omashu.
Right.
Right? So Azula took it over. He's going to get there, and Azula's going to be there. Maybe. I don't know. But that's how the anime goes, and
Right.
it makes sense if that's the direction they go in.
Right.
So, loved it.
Yeah. We'll just see if Azula grows into the character that we need her to be. I highly doubt it, but
the big thing is we didn't see Azula in season 1 of Avatar.
True.
So if they turn on a switch like that, it's like, okay, I'm fine with it. I mean, they're obviously changing things. So, and then the after credit scene with the comet.
Sozin's Comet.
Sozin's Comet.
It's coming.
Cool addition. I don't think Aang even knows the comet.
He doesn't know.
Yeah, I was like, did anyone ever tell him? Tell the crew? So this is just something Fire Lord's just now finding out. Okay, cool. I mean, when we talked about the other day how it's like Ozai's strategy of kind of sitting back and letting things happen, you could always make the argument that he always planned on waiting until the comet came back to strike.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, so it's like, oh, well, why doesn't Ozai go out into the battlefield and actually do certain things? It's like, well, he's waiting for the for the perfect moment. So okay, cool. But if he's just finding out now, it's like, well, that's odd. That's kind of odd. Yeah. So that's
We'll see. We'll see if Netflix picks it up for season 2.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that. I'm sure we'll make a video about that. I'm sure
Yep.
we'll make a video. We're gonna do a video about our review of the entire series, not just this episode, but the entire series as a whole. If you guys have been watching these consistently, you know we have a couple major themes, and I'm sure just going online, you'll see the same thing, same complaints we have.
And we thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
As always.
John, where are you on your score of this episode?
I want you to guess my score.
I think you're somewhere around the 2.75.
Not too far off. I gave it a 3, actually.
You did.
I gave it a
Welcome
3.
to the dark side.
I gave it a 3.
You gave it a good. So you liked it. So you gave it a positive score.
It was a positive score.
Good.
Yeah.
I gave it a 3.75.
Holy moly.
Yeah. No, I think that again, I'm complaints like what they did with Azula's character, what they did with Zuko and his little thing going back and forth with Ira. Those are things that have already been built into the series. So
but you can still critique them.
No, but I can't I'm not gonna. It's a series change. It's not an episodic change. You know what I mean? Like, because this version of Zuko, it makes sense that he says that because it's this version of Zuko, not, you know what I mean? So like that critique I had when they made Zuko in episode 2, this version of Zuko, that's when I had the critique. I can't critique everything going on from there. That's the way I look at it. So, you know, I like
to each their own with that, but
yeah, sure. I mean that's the way I look at it. Like they chose to make Azula a certain way. I'm not gonna critique every episode Azula's in from now on. You know what I mean? Like that's who she is. Now I have to go by the rules and the character that they've created, and if they do something else, I'm gonna be like, that doesn't make sense to that character that they've created. But I'm not just gonna dang every episode Azula's in because she's in it and she's different. So I mean, that's the way I look at it. I had fun in this episode. Like I said, there was no scene where I walked away or I went to the next scene. I had to like pause and be like, you know, like every scene was solid. Even the Godzilla thing, it's like, okay, that's kind of how it was in the anime. They just did it in a different way.
Yeah.
It was funny though how like Godzilla had like noise. It was like it was actually like sounded like Godzilla. I was like, y'all, I mean, maybe because of the Asian culture, I don't know.
Yep. Yep.
Like, it's like legit sounded like Godzilla. I was like, why did they have to do that? But yeah, like all the fight sequences worked. I mean, if I watched this and never watched Avatar, I'd be like, that was pretty cool. You know, like it was a good episode. I wouldn't say it was good. Like I said, it wasn't good to me as a 4, right? So like I wouldn't say it was good to the sense of like I thoroughly enjoyed myself, but like I think
you almost did apparently.
That's what I'm saying. Like I would say I'm if meh and good had a middle, which is a 3.5. This was a bit more better than that.
I see.
So like if you asked me if any of these episodes were good, I'd say no, because I didn't give any 4s out.
Right. Sure. Fair.
You know, you can be positive without being good. You can, you know what I mean? Like I lean a little positive on this episode. So
of course.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us in these 8 episodes. Check out, and probably a day after this video comes out, our full review of the series. What was your favorite episode?
Comment below.
Your favorite episode. Comment below. Subscribe.
And welcome to the Cabbage
Dungeon.
Welcome to the crew, Cabbage.
Thank God we're done this series. Thank God we're done this series. All right. Well, back to the anime.
Back to important matters.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye, Cabbage Crew.